Welcome in to what is, I guess, technically week 2 of the bowl season here at the Merrifield Sportsbook. It's a great time to be alive. Merry Christmas late for everybody. Happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa. Can't believe they made a holiday for Stephen Kwan himself, but what can I say? Festivus, happy Festivus, and I think I covered all the holidays right there. We have a full crew this week. Justin Walsh here once again. Jay DeCoster here once again. And back from the albatross that is the Dort Financial Credit Union Arena, or whatever it's called in Flint, it's Matt Merrifield. Matt, we'll start with you. You have not been here and it feels like a month. So, just how does it feel to be back on your show that is named after you?
Oh, it's exhilarating to be back. Duty calls at the Dort Financial Center. The Firebirds are the second hottest team in the OHL right now going into the Christmas break. Ironically enough, they played the Niagara Ice Dogs, who are on a 7-game winning streak on Saturday night. So big time matchup out in Genesee County. But otherwise, it's lovely to see all of you gentlemen, all your beautiful faces. I'm kind of glad I missed some of these college football talks because I was exhausted with this playoff. I have thoughts on the college football playoff and how much I love it, even though ESPN sucks. We can get into it, but I'm just thrilled to be back. Thrilled to be back. Happy New Year. Happy holidays to all.
Jay Walsh, obviously, you're back once again. I mean, it's been a long week, it feels like, for college football talk. We'll obviously get into it, but overall, coming into this week, how are you feeling about the board?
I'm feeling all right. I mean, obviously, the discussion with the playoff matchups has been, as you said, pretty exhausting. And it's just been terrible to see a lot of the formerly highly respected and thought of sports media personalities show their true colors just because of who's signing the checks. But, there's nothing that we can do about that aside from give our honest analysis and what we genuinely believe here on the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. So looking forward to another week at it.
And then Jay, if I am correct, you just completed a move, I believe, something along those lines. How did that go? And how does it feel to be living right next to the second biggest campus in the world, DePaul University?
Yeah, I moved in like a few days ago. I'm excited. Right by DePaul. So we'll be, who knows if I get a gym membership there at the great DePaul University Rec Center. But I'll be passing by there as I make my way towards the train for work every day. So love being right next to the greatest university ever. And moving was kind of exhausting, but able to get in my nice new place. We're still in the process of it, but I'm glad to move in finally. So,
well, Jay, just remember what we said last week about the gym membership. Your monthly gym membership goes directly into Blue Demon NIL money. May not actually do that, but we'll choose to believe that.
Jay, will you be in attendance at the DePaul UConn game on New Year's Day?
I think I am. I think my dad and I are probably going.
And
why not?
Mr. DeCoster will be there.
Yeah, of course.
Will DeCoster be making an appearance as well?
I'm sure he will. Yes.
Incredible. Jay and I will be hopefully convening at a local establishment in Wrigleyville.
That's right.
Following the Michigan State friendly confines game, frozen confines, whatever the hell it's called, at Wrigley Field next Saturday. I don't know if we'll have a show between now and then because
cannot wait.
The college football playoff is New Year's Day. But anyways, God, I can't wait for the JDC crossover next week.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. Sir. The frozen confines at Wrigley. Just say less.
MSU hockey, release your uniforms, please.
Yeah, Matt, that would be nice. But like I said to you, I'm not convinced anything's coming anymore. So let's before we get into the college football, Matt, we're recording on Boxing Day. It's a big day for hockey. The World Juniors started today. I know you haven't watched a lot of it. You've just kind of been scoreboard watching. Overall, just basic thoughts on what you think is going to come out of this World Juniors this year.
I think the United States is a wagon beyond any other. Like the fact that they're top line. I don't know if they're actually playing together or not because I unfortunately don't have NHL Network anymore. So I have limited access to be able to actually watch these games, which is incredibly disappointing. I know Axel Sandin Palinka over in Sweden, the Red Wings draft pick, looks like the next best defenseman coming through the NHL ranks. But for the U.S. side, I mean, having Leonard, Perreault, and Hagens on a line together is A, unfair, but B, just absolutely insane. Trey Augustine, I think, is the best young goaltender in the world. I would put him at the best under 22 goalie, I think. Even I know this is U20s. And the U.S. is a wagon. I mean, you talked about Gavin McKenna. Unfortunately, I can't watch much of this tournament, which is really disappointing. But I expect the U.S. to take care of business because they are head and shoulders better than everybody, I think, talent-wise.
Yeah, Gavin McKenna, can't wait for the Penguins to tank for him next year. He is going to be a great Pittsburgh Penguin, walking in footsteps of course, the great Sidney Crosby. Now, Jay Walsh just thumbs down, of course. No surprise there. Let's actually get
one more thing. Sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off here.
Oh, you're good.
It has been brought up the last couple of weeks that, of course, Mr. Merrifield has missed the last couple shows. And the first show that he was not here for was when we reviewed our preseason picks and for all the conferences and awards and stuff like that. And I won't even get into the conference champion picks because, we all had some rough ones there. I just would love to get your opinion and defense on your extraordinary pick of Noah Fifita as your Heisman for the 2024 season.
I would like to say, I believe, I don't know if it was on this show, the Green and White Report, or both. I'm pretty sure it was both. I publicly not defamed, because everything I said was factual about him because he was terrible this year and Arizona was a dumpster fire. But I publicly took away my comments and acknowledged the fact that they were wrong. And I am 100%, I was wrong. Noah Fifita stinks. Teterow McMillan, best quarterback in this draft, receiver in this draft, I should say. And if you're the Jaguars and you take Travis Hunter instead of him, you are making a ginormous mistake because Teterow McMillan is an absolute stud, but Arizona, absolute disaster. I completely own up to it. I will say I made up for it because I believe I was the only person that said Penn State was going to make the Big Ten title game, and it was because of a stupid tiebreaker. And they probably shouldn't have. I mean, they showed up and they played well against Oregon, but I knew it wasn't going to be Ohio State, Oregon, and so I hold my hat on that. So don't judge me by my winners, judge me by my losers because I have so few, even though Noah Fifita was a very wrong statement. So, but anyways, no further comment at this time.
All right. I did kind of forget that. Thank you, Jay Walsh, for stepping in. Again, now let's actually get to the football once again. College football playoff. The first round is over. All home teams won. Not very close either. Truly, I think the closest game was Notre Dame beating Indiana by 10. Even that doesn't really tell the full story of that game. Yet, after all these games happened, it honestly started even before the second game was played. The just absolute disgusting disaster of media just completely taking a large, gigantic dump on the playoff because of it basically just being blowouts. It honestly, like Jay Walsh kind of alluded to it right at the beginning. I mean, we saw a lot of people show their true colors this past weekend. So we'll just kind of go around the room. Jay Walsh, I will start with you. Just kind of your overall takeaways of round one. I don't feel like there was a ton to take away, and then of course leading into the media aspect of it, as we are all technically journalism majors. We are the media, so you just kind of go with whatever you want here.
Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously, none of the games were really competitive this weekend. That pretty much goes without saying. Obviously, I mean, Indiana scored a garbage time touchdown to get it to a 10-point game, but that game was never in question. but it is incredibly disappointing to see just how many of the famous media personalities came out and basically showed their ass. I mean, it literally it started before the Indiana game was even over. It started when Sean McDonough on live national television was literally said during the Indiana Notre Dame game that the results of that game should show that the SEC, and I quote, and especially the Big Ten, should not be thought of as higher level conferences and above everybody else. That is just a ridiculous statement to make from somebody who is supposedly neutral and has to be objective, but instead, obviously, the pretty much everybody that's been on that side of the argument for this past week has been employed by ESPN, which not going to say which of the major conferences ESPN has a partnership with. I think we all know it's a certain conference in the southeastern region of the country, but it really is just disgusting. And the amount of people that came out and talked all that trash about Indiana and about SMU and about all the little teams in the country to then turn around and excuse Tennessee when they had the biggest loss of the weekend, like Paul Feinbaum and Kirk Herbstreit basically giving Tennessee a pass when they were less competitive than any team that played the entire weekend. So I think it's ridiculous. I can't believe that a lot of the people who came out with that opinion, I am very disappointed in them. And I think I think ESPN is broken. I think they have been for a while, but I think this just kind of cemented that they're going to say whatever they want to say that's going to help line their own pockets instead of talking about the actual issues of college football. So that's my opinion. I'll let you guys say what you got to say.
Jay, we'll go to you next. It is kind of a weird, like, parallel universe when Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are on Monday Night Football, basically, saying like things that actually sound correct compared to what we've heard all week from college football media.
Right. No, I mean, I agree with Jay Walsh. It's like there's a lot of bias going on. Like obviously, Paul Feinbaum's, in bed with the SEC. A lot of these conferences are, ESPN. Look, they work with the SEC. They signed a multi-billion-dollar contract to call the games with them, and they're like you said, defending Tennessee when they got blown off the field. It's not surprising at all. And I mean, I feel like this is what these guys wanted, like the 12-team playoff, and all four of these games were blowouts, and none of these were competitive. I feel like it's just the same. I'm not surprised with the media what they did at all. It's just because that it's all about the money and it's all about bias, and it's just I feel like I'm gonna co-sign what Jay Walsh said. It's just all a bunch of it's all about bias, and it's all about the money at this point. That's what college football is now. It's all about the ratings. And look, now we can talk about whether Indiana should have been in or not, or SMU. That's a topic for another another discussion point. But I mean, the media's. I'm not surprised what they did. They always do their they do their what, and like what Herbstreit did. I mean, it's just I'm not surprised. So.
And then Matt, we'll go to you last. Awful Announcing, the website, put up a post this week, or this like on Monday or Tuesday, and it mentioned that ESPN pushed for this 12-team playoff so much, and they tried to get this over the line, and then they finally got it. This weekend, at least for them, should have been like a large, like huge celebration of college football, given like playoff games on campus and all that stuff. Yet ESPN turned it into like one of the biggest negatives and made it such a miserable viewing experience. So, I mean, I know you said that you got positives for it, which we'll get to, but like just your overall thoughts.
Well, like you put it, and going into that Friday night game, we were at my family's house. We were making Christmas cookies. We were making the batter for our gingerbread and our sugar cookies, and it was 8:00 hit, and we had the TV on in our kitchen of the Notre Dame game. But I went out into the family room to watch the game start because I was excited for Notre Dame Stadium at night, packed house. Everybody had they talked about the rally towels they had, and Notre Dame has one of these coolest entrances in college football. Walking down the stairs, running out of the tunnel. That is scenic. That's what you get romantic about when you think about the tradition of college football. And they didn't show it. Why are we on neutral fields if we're not going to embrace and lean into it? And I understand Notre Dame's not the hardest place to play in the country. And I understand it's kind of like going to a Yankee game or going to Fenway, where it's more corporate and there's more of like that touristy vibe to it. And maybe that was how it was during that game. But still, when they were running out of that tunnel, that is a shot you have to have. Just like if it was in Death Valley in Baton Rouge, just like if it was in the other Death Valley at Clemson, just like if they were in Austin with Shout, that's the stuff you have to show because that's the luxury you get out of having a college football playoff. So I thought the production value of just selling the on campus was done poorly, even though I thought game day actually was good at that. It was cool to see both. I don't know why they did a 3-hour show on Friday. That didn't seem necessary. It was cool that they were there for the game, but I wouldn't have done a 3-hour show. But that's whatever ESPN wants to do with their programming. We could have a whole other show about that. Positive wise, and I can repeat what Jay Walsh and Jay said all day about just I'm not surprised. That's where we've been dealing with this for years. It was just on the main stage this weekend where obviously the SEC takes the cake and is the king of all kings and can do no wrong. I personally, when it came to the college football playoff, enjoyed Saturday. I know everybody's going to point to what happened today with Toledo and Pitt and say bowl games need to stay. Bowl games don't need to stay, guys. If anybody watched that Hawaii Bowl on Christmas Eve, that was dog shit football. Absolutely terrible. It was hard to watch. Like the playoffs I think the playoffs should go to 24 teams because I think the best teams in each conference actually are quality teams to watch, and there are certain mid-majors or group of fives, whatever you want to call them. They're mid-majors now, the way they're treated. Those teams deserve a shot to play on the main stage. I had fun with the college football playoff. I understand they weren't close games, but I still thought they were entertaining. They weren't unwatchable. I didn't get a chance to watch a ton of the Penn State game to the MSU basketball, but it wasn't, from what I heard, it wasn't like it was just absolute unwatchable. People couldn't complete passes. I mean, Penn State was the better football team, and I think we kind of knew that going in. But so I am a proponent for it. I think if they made a 2014 playoff, we get more games, and it's still within that realm of having quality football teams. Once we get beyond 24, yes, we'll have bad football. But I think so. I'm a proponent of it. I actually enjoyed having the 12-team playoff, despite them being blowouts. And the other thing is, most college football games look like what we saw on Saturday and Friday night. We don't get a lot of close games every weekend. There's 1, 2, maybe 3, but that's over the course of a 1 noon slate, 3:30 slate, 7 o'clock slate. We're lucky if we get one game in each time slot that is wire to wire, awesome football to watch. So when you only have 4 games on in 2 days, guys, there's probably a good chance they're going to be stinkers. And even when we had the 14 playoff, most of the semifinals and finals were stinkers. So let's not complain and say it's because of the bigger field is why what happened. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these games on Saturdays are blowouts, and it might not even be the games with the big spreads. So we'll have to wait and see. But otherwise, I think this weekend's going to be a fun weekend of football, or New Year's Day, I should say. But it just feels like everybody wanted a reason to complain, and some of them are valid. Some, I think, just people need to realize what college football is and kind of the product we are going to get from a playoff. But anyways, I thought overall, you take away whatever ESPN was trying to push, I thought it was a successful weekend for the playoff in and of itself.
Yeah, and Matt, you mentioned it right at the end there, but it seems like a lot of people just seem to forget that I'd say 75% of the semifinals in the 14 playoff era were blowouts. I mean, there were years where we did not need a playoff. It could have just been 1 versus 2 and we would have been fine with it. But people just seem to forget all of that happened just because of last year. I know Washington almost blew it at the end. Texas made an incredible comeback. And then Michigan and Alabama went to overtime. I believe obviously Michigan on TCU the year before, that was a close one. I don't remember what the other semifinal was that year.
That was the Ohio State Georgia game. That was the best year. That was the only year. And then we had Georgia TCU, and everybody pointed. And so, anyways, continue.
Yeah, I don't know how I forgot Ohio State missing a field goal right at midnight on New Year's Eve. How could I forget that? But yeah, like people seem to just completely forget the 8 years prior to that and just chose to remember these last 2 years. Because I mean, like guys, it's been blowouts most of the time. Like, let's just enjoy the football because, like Matt said, although some of ESPN's production value was absolutely horrific this weekend, trying to display, the field, all that kind of stuff, it was absolutely horrific. Like, still, like that's just what college football is. So, I mean, obviously, this upcoming New Year's Eve and day, it's going to be different because it's neutral sites, but it's going to be interesting to see how narratives change given, obviously, all the home teams advanced. We still do have underdogs, like as in Arizona State and Boise State, but I don't think a lot of people are expecting much from them, which will also be interesting to play out because I'm sure ESPN will try to make a case that they shouldn't have been in, even though they won their conference. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Given all those points, we will get into this week's games right now. We will start with the one game that is on New Year's Eve. I believe it's 8 o'clock kickoff, might be 7:30, somewhere around there. I'm sure it will be ending right before midnight. So most likely the last game of the 2024 calendar year. It is Penn State traveling to Glendale to take on Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. Penn State a 10.5-point favorite. The over-under 52.5. Jay DeCoster, we will start with you. Obviously, we saw Penn State this past weekend quite handily easy with SMU. And now, I mean, the path couldn't be easier for James Franklin to get to a semifinal. Yet, you're going against a Boise State team that they seem to have voodoo magic in State Farm Stadium in Glendale. 3-0 in Fiesta Bowls. They're going to be wearing the same uniform combination they have worn the past 3 times. Do you think Boise State has a chance to advance to the semifinal in this game?
I mean, I think they do. I mean, look, obviously, the whole story behind this game is Ashton Genty and his Penn State's run defense can be able to handle them. You got guys like Abdul Carter up front, a first-round draft pick. Is he gonna be able to contain a guy like that? I mean, if Penn State's gonna be able to do that, I think Penn State can win this game pretty handily. I mean, you saw they did the SMU. I know SMU's not great. We can make a debate. Should they have been in the playoff? I mean, they handled SMU. Easily. They made Jennings, the quarterback in SMU, feel very uncomfortable. I know it was at home, but still. I mean, Penn State's defense was all over the place in that game, and if they're able to contain Genty, I mean, they can win this game pretty handily. So, for this pick, I don't know. I'm going to go Penn State in this spot. They look really good. I know we talked about in the last episode, James Franklin, but look, Penn State is a Mountain West team. I mean, they've been good Boise State's a Mountain West team. They've been very good all season, but this is a level up in competition. We've been talking about a lot of blowouts. I could definitely see this being a blowout type of game. So I'm going to go with Penn State. I'm also going to go with the under here. I think Penn State's defense will be able to contain them pretty handily. I just like Penn State in the spot. I think they have a really easy spot to the semifinal. Excuse me, path to the semifinal. I think they can get it done here. So I'm going to lean with Penn State in the spot.
Matt, we'll go to you next. Obviously, these two do have a common opponent. They both played Oregon this year. For Boise State, this is their first real challenge, like up a level of competition since playing Oregon week 2. Do you think, given, obviously, we've seen, like I said, both teams play Oregon. Do you think Boise State has a better chance given that they've played somebody on Penn State's level this year, unlike, past years when you had like a Cincinnati when they made the playoff? I know they played Notre Dame, but Notre Dame wasn't good that year. So do you think them playing Oregon earlier in the year gives them a better shot of winning this game, or do you still think it's just Penn State all the way?
I'm honestly not sure, because obviously I think while basketball and football are not apples to oranges, or are apples to oranges, I guess. I'm not quite sure how this saying actually goes, to be quite honest. But the point being is that, with Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament every year with March Madness, sure, in their non-conference, they take, they play the UConns, they play the Dukes, they play the Kentuckys every year, and then they take off 2 months to go play Loyola Marymount twice a week. And then they come back to March, and does it translate? Some years it does a little bit, some years it doesn't. Obviously, Mark Few still without a national title, just the one Final Four appearance. I don't know if that translates to football. Honestly, it's just where my brain goes in terms of thinking about, how to kind of extrapolate this game. The one thing I like about Boise, and this is just a historical trend I noticed, I don't actually know the stats behind it, Heisman runner-ups kick ass in their bowl game coming out after losing the Heisman. And obviously, I'm not sure how the rest of you feel. I know, some of your leanings. I thought Genty should have been the Heisman winner. And last time I think of a similar situation was Mr. Christian McCaffrey when he went off against Iowa. Now, that was the Rose Bowl, wasn't a playoff game. So I don't know who I lean here. Obviously, it's a big spread. I think I would take Boise to cover the 10.5. I don't know if I like them enough to win. But more importantly, I love the over. 52.5, I don't think it's enough points. Penn State's offense has been rocking these last couple weeks. Obviously, their defense helped them out with the 38 they put up against SMU, but they had 37 against Oregon. The run game was awesome. Obviously, both teams ran up on Oregon. Maryland, they had 44 against, 26. They had 49, 35 against Washington and Purdue. On the other side, Boise State puts up points. Ashton Genty hasn't been able to be stopped by anybody. Their totals, honestly, the last couple games have been low. But I feel like in this game, they're going to try and turn it. This one just might turn into a track meet on New Year's Eve night. So my play here would be the over 52.5. But I would also take Boise plus 10 if you had to make me make a pick.
And then Jay Walsh, we'll go to you last. Matt just touched on it. The over-under in this game does seem a bit iffy because this game could very easily turn into a track meet, and it's just going to be points galore.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting one, just simply because, I mean, like we've said, obviously Boise State had that close game against Oregon at the beginning of the season, but since then they haven't played anybody to the level of Penn State yet. I do want to point out they got Oregon at the point in the season when Oregon was still kind of finding itself a little bit. I mean, obviously they were winning all those games. They finished undefeated, but they had the close one against Boise. They played a much closer game than it should have been against Idaho. I mean, they kind of took a couple weeks to get into the groove. Kind of following that Ohio State game, they started kind of rolling people. And I mean, we saw what their offense could do against Penn State. I mean, this is the first time that Boise State is going to play a team at this level when they are hitting their peak, because Penn State is hitting their peak right now. I don't think there's any question about it. As Matt said, their offense has been absolutely rolling lately. They're putting up points, and obviously the defense is still incredibly talented. They couldn't stop Oregon, but Oregon, like I said, since the Ohio State game, has been playing like the best team in the country, so I'm not going to hold that against them that much. I do like what Matt said about former Heisman runner-ups balling out. I think that's what it's going to take if this over is going to hit, because I think if Ashton Genty is held up even a little bit in this game, I think Penn State runs away with it. And I think it's probably going to be non-competitive, so I don't necessarily know that the over will hit. I do think Ashton Genty is going to figure out a way. So I do like the over here, but I am going to stick with Penn State minus the 10.5 just because, like we've said, they are very, very hot right now. They're looking like one of the best teams in the country. Obviously, as Jay pointed out, it is still James Franklin, so anything is possible. But I like Penn State in this spot.
And then I just close out. If we take a look, obviously this is just historically, but if you look at the Fiesta Bowl and its history, and you look at all the teams that have played in more than 3 Fiesta Bowls, there are 3 teams that are undefeated in Fiesta Bowls. Penn State is 7-0 in Fiesta Bowls. Boise State is 3-0 in Fiesta Bowls, and Oklahoma State is 3-0 in Fiesta Bowls. One of these 2 teams is going to lose their first Fiesta Bowl, and it most likely will be Boise State. I think they can keep it close, though, because of that Gene T factor with him losing the Heisman. Like has been mentioned, it seems like they always go off in the game following that. I mean, we saw it last year with Michael Penix. He is the perfect example of that. I know he is a quarterback, not a running back, but you also have the Christian McCaffrey example. I think Boise State keeps it close. I don't think they can keep up with Penn State at the end. As was mentioned earlier, Penn State is hitting their peak right now. And I don't think Boise State is going to be able to match that. I like the over and Boise State plus the 10.5 here. We'll move on.
Before we move on to Texas, Arizona State, I do just want to add, it is an incredible missed opportunity if Boise State does not run a Statue of Liberty play in this game. That's all I'm going to say.
100% it is. We're going to be in like the 5th overtime, and they're going to pull that out. I truly can't wait. Given that, overtime past the third or past the second one is 2-point conversions, like it is a criminal. It's criminal if they don't run it if we are in like a 3rd or 4th overtime. Like you just can't. You can't do it. You're Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. You got to run it. Let's officially move on to the Peach Bowl now. This will be the first game of the new year. It is Texas as a 13.5-point favorite facing off against Arizona State. The over-under 51.5. Matt, we'll start with you on this one. I mean, it feels like this is going to be Texas quite easily. But, I mean, the way Arizona State closed out the year, it feels like they might be able to somewhat keep it close.
I want to take Arizona State so badly with Cam Scadaboo and just the way they finished out the year. But I don't think I can. Texas is really good, even when their offense isn't great, but it figured itself out pretty well over the weekend against Clemson. And I think the train ends here. And it's much of a fun story I think Arizona State's been, and I think they keep it competitive. And I don't know if it's like necessarily a huge blowout, but at 13.5, I lean Arizona State, or I lean Texas in this one. Unfortunately, I think they're the second best team in college football this year, or they're top 3 at the very worst, and they're dominant, and especially on the defensive side of the football. And so, unfortunately for the Sun Devils, I'm going with Texas.
Jay Walsh, we'll go to you next. If Arizona State somehow pulls off a victory in this game, who is going to be the deciding factor on that team to win them this game?
Well, I don't think there's any surprise. I think it is going to be Cam Scadaboo. Texas has had one of the best pass defenses in the country all season. Where they have been vulnerable is in the run game. I mean, we saw in the games that they played against, in the games that they lost against Georgia, they were mainly, the key plays of that game or of those games were Georgia scoring on the ground. I think the run game is where they are most vulnerable, and that is why I think I do like Arizona State to cover the 13.5 here. And another reason why is, like, Matt, I know you said that you think that Texas is one of the 2 or 3 best teams. I haven't really seen evidence of that. I mean, everyone has been talking about how Indiana and SMU had these terrible schedules and didn't really beat anybody. Texas had the big win against Texas A&M, the last game of the season. That's a great win. They just beat a Clemson team, which, they're solid. They're not contenders or anything. But aside from that, they really haven't beaten anybody all year. So I'm not, again, I said it a couple weeks ago, I'm not ready to crown them as one of the best teams in the country yet. I do like Arizona State to cover here. I do think Texas still does win this game, but I think Arizona State will keep it relatively close. The over-under is very tricky here at 51.5. I think I like the under here, actually. I wouldn't necessarily bet it if given the choice, but gun to my head, pick over under. I think I like the under 51.5.
Then Jay, we'll go to you last. Obviously, both of these teams, very good seasons. Arizona State closed out very well. But do you think that almost month off is going to play a huge factor in deciding if they win or lose this game, with Texas playing obviously like last week?
Yeah, obviously the rest helps. I don't really think that necessarily matters in the spot. I'm kind of in a situation with Matt. I'm probably just going to lean with Texas here. Look, Arizona State's a great story. Sam Leavitt's been awesome for them. I mean, next year if he stays with Arizona State, he has potential like being like one of the best quarterbacks in college next year. I firmly believe that. And I mean, look, Scadaboo's been awesome. Texas is just a much better team. I know Jay Walsh said like, yeah, where are their wins? But they just have so much more talent. I mean, what they did to Clemson last week was pretty impressive in my opinion. And I think, I mean, what Kludnik threw for 336. I think Levitt can absolutely do that if Arizona State's gonna be able to pull off a win. And yeah, I think Scadaboo can absolutely do some damage on the ground against them too. But I'm gonna lean with Texas here. I just think they're just way more talented. They're one of the favorites to win it all. So I just think they're the much better team. And Arizona State's a great story. I mean, they're just the Big 12 is just not a very good conference. I mean, they're going up against an SEC juggernaut here. I don't see. I mean, I can see it being a little close. I'm just going to lean with Texas minus the 13.5. I think they can roll pretty easily here. So give me them, and I also like the over. So yeah.
All right. Just before we move on from this game, if Arizona State wins this game, what is the narrative on Michigan State Twitter when Sam Leavitt has just an absolutely career game?
I don't even want to think about that. It's going to be just terrible to scroll through those tweets.
Can I say one thing about the Sam Leavitt stuff? And it has nothing to do with his ability to play football. The fact that you're upset, and maybe Jonathan Smith isn't going to be a very good coach at Michigan State, but the reason Sam Leavitt's not here is because, he wasn't recruited by Smith before going to Oregon State. You know what? I respect it, Sam. Like, if you don't want to be a part of it now, that's fine. Go to Arizona State. I'm glad you're having your success. But the fact that Spartan fans are losing their crap, say Jonathan Smith will hopefully be at Michigan State a lot longer than Sam Leavitt will be. So why on earth do you care about one quarterback during the first 3 years of your program when the team's not going to win either way? Spartans still go 4-8, 5-7 this year with Sam Leavitt at quarterback. Hate to break it to you. That's just my biggest thing, and it doesn't make any sense. The program is neither better or worse off with Sam Leavitt at quarterback. So who cares? Anyways, that's my stupid rant of the day. Thank you. Moving on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any other words for that. So let's move on to the granddaddy of them all, the 111th Rose Bowl, I believe. 110th, 100th, 11th. It's up there. It is Ohio State taking on Oregon. It's a rematch of, I believe, the 1958 Rose Bowl and the 2010 Rose Bowl. Also a rematch of the 2010 2015 national championship, of course, the first one of the 14 playoff. And of course, they played this year with Oregon winning by 1. Given all that, Ohio State's a 2.5-point favorite. The over-under is 55.5. Jay Walsh, we'll start with you. I told Matt this when Ohio State was up by a bazillion against Tennessee. I was going to be very interested when the line came out for this game because prior to Ohio State losing to Michigan, when they had the hypothetical lines out for a Big Ten title game, Ohio State was a 2.5-point favorite. Before they played Tennessee, the hypothetical line was Oregon minus 2.5. After they played Tennessee, we have got it now where Ohio State is a 2.5-point favorite. Do you read anything into those lines, or is this just going to be out there spread-wise?
This is a really difficult game to make anything of, just simply because, I mean, we all saw what happened the first time they played. It was in Eugene, a 1-point game. I think a neutral site game definitely makes this a lot more interesting, but at the same time, both of these teams are playing better now than they were when they played the first time, which makes this a really difficult game to pick. I think one of the biggest reasons, because on paper, I think Oregon should win this game. I think Oregon should cover. The biggest reason why I'm leaning Ohio State here is the same reason why I was leaning Ohio State last week against Tennessee. Ryan Day is coaching for his job at this point. I mean, if they blew out Tennessee last week, but I mean, if they lose this game, I still feel like if he's not fired, he is on the world's hottest seat, and has his entire fan base basically in panic mode. So I feel like he knows at this point, the players know at this point, this is a must-win game for them. Because of that, I think I do like Ohio State to win the game. 2.5 is such a weird line, though. I think I like Oregon to cover, but Ohio State to win. But that's the problem with a 2.5 line, is Ohio State could easily win this game by a field goal. But I think this will be a close game. I think this will be a phenomenal football game. I like the over in this game a lot. I think this could easily be like a 40-35 game or something like that. I mean, obviously I predicted it to be closer than that, but in terms of the scoring, I think it can be up there. So I like the over. Like I said, I think I like Ohio State to win, but I like Oregon to cover.
Jay, we'll go to you next. This is very much a classic Big Ten, Pac-12 Rose Bowl, even though both are in the Big Ten now. I mean, Ryan Day's still got a world of pressure on him, job-wise. But does it also feel like Dan Lanning has some pressure on him, just given the amount of talent that's on this team and also the amount of money that's been poured into this team this year?
Yeah, I mean, Phil Knight poured an incredible amount of money on this team to, put this roster together. I mean, yeah, I mean, there is pressure on him because, you had a chance to go to the playoff last year and you lose to Washington twice. I mean, there's pressure on both coaches. I mean, yeah, Ryan Day is coaching for his job, and Dan Lanning is also, if this is the year they can win it. I mean, this is the year they're going to do it. I mean, it's kind of sucks that Oregon got screwed. You got the 1 seed, and you have to face Ohio State, and you're an underdog. Oh man, I'm with Jay Walsh. This is going to be a great game. Oregon's awesome, and I mean, Ohio State when they don't play Michigan is just on a whole nother level. I mean, obviously you saw what they did against Tennessee. If Ohio State they just have the yips against Michigan. I mean, they're a great team, $20 million roster. Oh man, I'm going Ohio State. I just think they're in a spot where they're ready to win a natty. They're not playing Michigan, so they're at a whole nother level right now. Will Howard played phenomenal against Tennessee. I know Tennessee's, they looked awful, but still, Will Howard looked phenomenal. Jeremiah Smith's fantastic. I think what really, Ohio State in the trenches isn't great, or I think Oregon's better in that phase, but, Will Howard's been phenomenal, and I just, that line kind of scares me a little bit. I would lean Ohio State just because they're in a more desperate spot, and I would lean them just because of the playmakers they have on offense. So I'm going to take a Ohio State. Like I said, it's gonna be a phenomenal football game. I know you two just love your Oregon Ducks. I'm taking Ohio State though. Do I want Oregon? Yes, I would love Oregon to win this game. But Ohio State, they're the more desperate team right now. That like I said, when they don't play Michigan, they're they're just at a whole nother level. So I'm going to go with Ohio State.
All right, now we get to the very unbiased part of this show as the two people wearing the Oregon Ducks talk this one out right now.
Well,
Matt, I texted this to you during the Ohio State game when it started to get the feeling Ohio State was going to be favored in this one. Last year, Oregon goes to Washington. Oregon is a favorite. They lose outright. Oregon then faces Washington again on a neutral site. Oregon is once again a favorite. They lose again outright. Ohio State travels to Eugene this year, was a favorite, lost outright. Now they face Oregon again on a neutral site. They are favorites again. Do we see a trend here? And does this mean anything that our Oregon Ducks maybe are moving on to Jerry's world next week?
I'll take it a step further for you, Nick. Also, that Oregon-Washington game last year in Vegas was technically a quarterfinal game for the college football playoff because it was the conference title game and we knew who the winner was getting in, obviously. My thing, and what's ironic about Ohio State is everybody was begging them to throw the football, use their wide receivers, be creative. You know what Oregon's downfall has been in their last couple big games, whether they've lost or won, even if you conclude the Penn State and Boise State game? Their run defense. Or Ohio State has to run the football in this game, and it's backwards. And will Ryan Day do it? I have no idea. That man looks terrible every time they show him on TV. The last couple of weeks, he looks absolutely horrific, and I don't blame him. The media's been so far down his neck; they're practically a part of him. His dermatologist probably takes a look at that growth on his neck every time they goes in for a checkup because man, they're all over him. But Ohio State has to run the football, and they ran it fine against Tennessee. But early in the game, they threw the ball and it worked. That's not how they're going to beat Oregon. So I'm going to go with the Ducks plus 2.5. I kind of like your logic of reasoning here, Nick, and I'm torn on Ohio State. I cashed out my futures bet on them, full disclosure, on their national title. I did it, and I put on Tennessee money line. Was not a great couple hours last Saturday when the Buckeyes were getting ready to play. I don't know what my thought process was there. I probably should have bet it on Ohio State because I realized post game that I realized that how I should have used my money properly, but it's fine. So that's where I sit. I think Oregon wins this football game. I do think they're the better team. I think it's gonna be an absolute great football game, but I think Oregon's the better team, and I think they get it done. But I'm expecting an all-time Rose Bowl. I'm excited. I'm glad this is the Rose Bowl game. I don't like what Oregon's wearing, but I will get over and get past that, and we'll see what the Ducks can do. See if Dan Lanning can take care of business. I should have grabbed it off the fridge. Just put it up as my pick. I mean, my Oregon national championship ticket is sitting on the fridge right now that I got in Vegas in August. So as much as I love my family in Ohio and love my Buckeyes on the last weekend in November, even though it's been quite awful the past few years, I got to go with Oregon here. I got to truly believe that this is the year for the Ducks. Not because my money's on it, totally not because my money's on it, but this team on paper is the best team in college football. Obviously, my biggest worry is the fact they have not lost all year. It's felt like at parts of the year, it felt like they were due for a loss. Coming off this massive break, almost a month off, it's kind of creeping into that territory again where if Oregon starts slow in this game, like starts to get in like tricky territory, I don't know. I got to believe in the Ducks here. Give me not to spoil anything, Oregon money line is in my parlay just because that if you're going to take the 2.5 plus 2.5, you might as well take the money line. That's my logic on some of my picks this week. I'll just leave it at that. But Oregon money line, I got to believe in the Ducks in this one. Two things for you, Nick. Number one, don't you have to be in person to cash your ticket?
Well,
that
yeah,
argument.
but I'm going back in May to see Dead and Company at the Sphere again. So
Okay, well, outstanding. Well, good. I never mind. Okay, then. Second thing, my only logic when it comes to taking points is the saying: if Vegas wants to give you points, you take the points. That's the only reason I'm going to take Oregon in my parlay plus 2.5. I probably will still bet money line as well, just for the extra value. Same thing with another pick. But anyways, that's besides the point. Moving on to our final game.
yeah, we will move on to that Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, the nightcap, which probably won't start until 9 o'clock, just given how the Rose Bowl usually works. It is Notre Dame going up against Georgia. Georgia, a 1.5 point favorite. The over under 44.5. Jada Coster, we start with you. Obviously, Georgia will be without Carson Beck for the rest of the season. He had his surgery. It's now, I'm completely blanking on the backup's name that came in the second half, but it is now on him.
Gunnar Stockton.
Yes, that's exactly who it was. It's now on him to lead this Georgia team. He didn't look awful in that second half of the SEC title, but I mean, this line seems low for what we've seen Notre Dame do on big stages against teams like Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure Gunnar Stockton is a great man, but is he really ready for this game? Like, let's be honest here. He's a backup, and losing Carson Beck is big. Like, I know Georgia's great; they got a great roster, but losing Carson Beck is pretty big. As far as Notre Dame goes, look, they lost Riley Mills, their stud defensive tackle. I think that's pretty big for them. I think Georgia can definitely run the football more effectively on them. Notre Dame impressed me. Look, Jeremiah Love's a stud. He's a first round pick. I mean, Riley Leonard's looked much better. Ever since the NIU game, he's looked way better than compared to that game. Notre Dame's really good. I mean, their defense is awesome. Xavier Watts, that's All American safety, is a stud. I think that can give the backup a little bit of issues. I don't know. I'm going to take Notre Dame. Notre Dame's been really impressive ever since that NIU game. Their defense is awesome. I think that can give that quarterback fits in this game. I know Georgia's got all world talent on that offense and defense, but I think Notre Dame can definitely. I think Notre Dame's going to do it. I know. I thought they would come in this game as like a 2 or 3 point favorite. I was a little surprised when that line came out. So I'm going to take Notre Dame and the points. I think Notre Dame is ready to slay the demon of not winning a big game in the last 10 to 15 years. I think they're ready to do it. So I will take Notre Dame and the points.
Matt, we'll go to you next. I believe the stat is Notre Dame has not won a BCS or New Year's Six bowl game, or like one of the bowl games that are in there, since like the 1996 Cotton Bowl or something along those lines. This feels like a very good situation for them, obviously, given that Georgia's down Carson Beck. But do you think this is finally the year that they win one of these big postseason games?
Well, my thing with Notre Dame, and more so just examining Georgia, I love Notre Dame. I think their defense is outstanding, and I think they run the football well. But with Georgia, I look at them, and Notre Dame's solid. I think they know who they are. They have been who they are pretty much all year. The NIU game happened, came and went, and they've shown that they can run the football effectively. Riley Leonard's fine. Obviously, you don't want to lean on him to try and win a game. And that defense is physical and tough. For Georgia, and because shout out Mike Merrifield in the room behind me. He likes Georgia a lot in this playoff because of how talented they are, which is great. But unfortunately, Georgia has not shown up throughout the year. They've picked and chosen when they want to be there. And as we found out with certain teams, I'll use MSU basketball as an example the last couple of years. You can't pick and choose. You have to be a team that shows up every single week. And that's why I don't like Georgia in this playoff, because we don't know what team we're going to get. We know what Notre Dame team is going to show up, I think. I don't think anybody in their right mind knows, especially now with Gunnar Stockton. I'm going to ask, does anybody know what his yards per attempt were? I don't actually know how long the game he played against Texas, but anybody want to take a guess on how many yards he averaged per attempt?
I'm going to say 4.2.
Jay, you are. Go ahead, Mr. Walsh, if you want to throw your guess out there.
I was just gonna say I'm gonna go right around 5.
It was about 4.35, 4.4. So great call by JDC. That's horrific. That's terrible. That's not going to win them a football game, especially when Notre Dame already is going to load the box and make sure Georgia can't run the football. So I really like Notre Dame in this spot. I don't think Carson Beck being out is that big of a difference because he has been quite terrible, and you could argue he's been dragging down Georgia this year. But Gunnar Stockton doesn't make them any better, in my opinion. So I love Notre Dame. I think them and the winner of the Rose Bowl is going to be the national title game, and I think it's going to be electric, and I love it. And I truly love Marcus Freeman, and I'll take the 1.5, but Notre Dame all the way. I think they're going to win this game, 100%. So I guess go Irish.
Jay Walsh, 44.5. That is by far the lowest over-under that we have for these quarterfinal games. What do you make of that number?
Well, I think obviously it's heavily influenced by Carson Beck being out. And I think another aspect of it is just the level of talent on these two defenses. I mean, obviously we all know Georgia's going to have that high level of talent year in and year out. Notre Dame, in terms of pure talent on the team, is in that category as well. I mean, the recruiting classes that they've pulled in, they have the talent they have the talent on that defense, and obviously they've shown up for the vast majority of the season. We saw Indiana really struggled against that defense. I'm really glad that Matt pointed out the fact that Carson Beck has been god-awful, because I was going to say going into this matchup that for me, it did not matter who Georgia was playing at quarterback. I was going to pick Notre Dame regardless. I've said the last several weeks, and it's been reflected in the Jay Walsh rankings for basically the latter half of the season, that I am very high on Notre Dame. I think that they are one of the best teams in the country. And I really don't, like Matt said as well, with pertaining to Georgia, you don't know what you're going to get. You could get the team that blew out Georgia blew out Texas by almost 30 points, or you could get the team that went to 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech. I really like Notre Dame in this game. I would take them to win it easily. Like I said, I think that I would take them to win it even if Carson Beck was playing. The over-under is really weird because it feels ridiculously low, but at the same time, I could easily see the under hitting in this game. I do think I'll take the over just because I can't in good conscience bet on an under 45, but I think it's very possible for that to hit. But I do think that if Notre Dame plays the way that I think they can in this game, I think the over is a decent play. But my main pick is I love Notre Dame.
My last thing, Jay Walsh, I just want to add in. Now, the first half of that game, or however long Carson Beck played against Texas, he was bad. He was 7 for 13. And I know this is box score watching, but in the 3 games prior to the Texas game, he was averaging over 300 yards, and he had thrown 11 touchdowns in 3 games. I mean, am now realizing now then again, there was a 3-game stretch where he threw at least 2 picks between the first Texas matchup, and Mississippi State. So he does fit into that Texas theme, and I know we both made that point. And I do think in these big games this year, he's been a bigger detriment than a benefit. So, but anyways, I just thought I'd point that out, that his stats, the previous 3 games that he started, he actually was the quarterback that we kind of all expected him to be. I don't know if he actually was.
For sure.
His stats reflect that, I should say.
Yeah. No, for sure. And he has the talent to be that. It's just he hasn't done it consistently throughout the season. And when they've played against the top level teams, he has been very iffy. I mean, we saw he threw I think he threw 2 interceptions when they played against Bama. Obviously, 3 interceptions when they played against Bama.
3 against Texas, 3 against Florida.
Yeah. So when they've played I mean, obviously, I like the fact that we're throwing Florida into that group with the high-level teams that they've played, but
They're hot, baby. Most fun. They're fun.
They are fun. They are very fun. But like I said, when they've played the talented defenses, he really has struggled. I would have taken them regardless, but Gunnar Stockton makes it that much easier. I'm going with Notre Dame.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody took Notre Dame here. Give me the dogs. They're already in my parlay. I don't know if I trust Notre Dame in this situation. I know they're a very good team, and I know we really haven't seen the Georgia team of years past this year, especially in these past few games. But give me the dogs. Don't know why, but just give them to me. Let's get to our parlays. We'll just go around the screen. So I'll just start it off because I feel like I've already given half my picks. But we're going to start Friday night, 8 p.m., San Diego, California, home of Nick Sonk. Shout out, Nick. Even though you're not there, it's still your hometown, kind of. Come on. You think I'm picking anybody else? Give me Washington State plus 17.5. I don't care that they don't have their starting quarterback. I don't care that they don't have their head coach because he went to Wake Forest. I'm not betting on a team that has their coach opting out of an eggnog bath if they potentially win because he has an egg allergy. This dude doesn't shower after losses. Give me Washington State. Don't even have to say who they're playing against because they're just a god-awful university. And we're going to parlay that into Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Give me UConn money line in the Fenway Bowl. Freddie Kitchens is coaching for North Carolina. God, that gives me such terrible flashbacks. UConn money line, Fenway Bowl. That place is going to be filled with UConn fans. I'm sure there's going to be like 20 Patriots fans there thinking Bill Belichick is coaching in that game. Guess what, guys? He's not. You're about to get run over by Jim Mora's UConn Huskies. Later that night, give me our nation's military, Army, minus 16.5 against Louisiana Tech. Obviously got a terrible taste in their mouth after losing to Navy, however many weeks ago that was. On that same day, Louisiana Tech found out they were playing in this game. Louisiana Tech has not been good this year. Give me Army. And then the two picks that I've already mentioned. Oregon money line, I mean, at plus 110, I kind of feel like I got to take it. And Georgia minus 1.5, just because I don't trust Notre Dame in this situation. So, Jay Walsh, we'll go to you next. What is the parlay for the week? Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, Jay Walsh. Lock of the week is the UConn money line. Now, Jay Walsh, is your time.
All right, we will get into it. I think I haven't seen Jay's parlay yet, but I think I might be the only one that doesn't have a playoff matchup in my parlay this week. I'm going to start off. I am also going to the DirecTV Holiday Bowl for Syracuse, Washington State. However, I am going with the over in this matchup, the over 59.5. Obviously, I mean, Washington State down their starting quarterback, as we said, but I still think that they were a solid offense all year. They've got most of their offensive playmakers playing in this game. And both teams throughout this entire season have had good offenses, with Syracuse averaging 32.6 points per game, Washington State 36.8, and both defenses have not been good, with both defenses giving up over 28 points per game. I like the over in this one. My next pick, I am going with Louisiana plus 11.5 against TCU in the Isleta, New Mexico Bowl. TCU is missing their top two receivers in this game. Neither of them will be playing, Jack Beck and Savion Williams. So it's going to be very tough for them to get production from that receiver room. Louisiana is also getting their starting quarterback back in this game, Ben Woolridge. He missed the previous 3 games for Louisiana with a broken collarbone. He is probable to play in this game, so they're getting their starting quarterback back. And the third and most important point, Louisiana's pass defense has been solid pretty much all year. They've struggled against the run. TCU does not run the ball. They throw the ball. They are going to throw the ball as much as they can. They're 13th in the Big 12 in rushing offense this season. And obviously, like I said, missing their top 2 receivers, that's going to be a tough thing to do. I like Louisiana plus 11.5 in that one. My third pick, and I said this in the pre-show, I cannot believe we did not do a preview for this game simply because it is the most electric bowl game of the year, the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Iowa State, Miami. I am going with the over in this one. Cam Ward is, by basically all accounts, expected to play in this game as far as I'm aware. He's said multiple times that he is planning to play in this game. Iowa State playmakers are also playing in this game. I mean, there's a pattern in most of my picks this week, basically just going with whoever has people playing in this game or playing in the bowl game instead of opting out or being in the transfer portal. But Iowa State, like I said, their playmakers are all playing. Miami overs have hit in 9 of their 12 games this season. So, I mean, I feel like that's a very safe bet. Both of these teams are capable of putting points on the board. Obviously, the last time we saw Iowa State didn't quite go very well for them against Arizona State, but I think they're in for a bit of a rebound. And obviously, like I said, Miami overs are very, very easy bets. So I like the over 55.5 in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And by the way, one more thing about the Pop-Tarts Bowl. They did mention that the MVP of the game gets to pick the flavor of Pop-Tart that the team consumes following the game. So I just wanted to put that out there that the Pop-Tarts Bowl stays winning. My fourth pick, and this is my lock of the week, which may be dooming them to all hell, but hopefully the curse is broken. Missouri minus 2.5 against Iowa in the Music City Bowl. Missouri is missing their star receiver, Luther Burden, but pretty much all their other playmakers are playing, including their starting quarterback, Brady Cook. Most importantly, Caleb Johnson is not playing for Iowa, and he was their entire offense. When I don't care who their quarterback is, Brendan Sullivan, Cade McNamara, they stink without Caleb Johnson. I'm rolling with Missouri. They're 8-4 against the spread this season, despite the fact that they've been overranked most of the year. I really like Missouri in this spot. I think they are going to do very mean things to Iowa. My final pick, I am rolling with Louisville minus 2.5 against Washington in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Both teams are expected to start relatively fresh quarterbacks. Washington, Damon Williams making his second start. And Louisville has Harrison Bailey making his first start with the team. So don't really know what we're getting out of either offense. Washington has a terrible run defense, 16th in the Big Ten to be exact. And Louisville has dynamic freshman running back Isaac Brown, who's had a big freshman year, over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. He's going to carry their offense in this game. I like them minus 2.5 against Washington. So those are my 5 picks, and I will turn it over to either Matt or JDC, whoever wants to go next.
Jay, you can go before me. I just have one thing as I'm scanning the board, and I had to double check to make sure this is true. We have a conference matchup in the Alamo Bowl. Why is that not
we
being
do.
discussed?
I was looking at that, and I did not make a pick in that game simply because it was a conference matchup, and I hate it so much.
I don't know what the hell Prime is doing. I'm sure he's opting out of his own bowl game and not coaching in it because he's got get ready for his kids' draft or something. I don't care. I don't know who's playing for BYU. I just simply saw that and had to make sure I had that right, that we were having 2 Big 12 teams playing a bowl game. Anyways, Jay, if you'd like to go right ahead.
Well, Jay, before we get to you, Matt, do you know why?
Because of the previous bowl bids.
Yes, because of the Pac-12
still has to
tie-ins
fill
and
its
the
slots.
Pac-12 being big.
I understand. I just hate it. And I feel like there's a better solution here. But once again, I don't get paid enough in its ESPN's programming decisions and the bowl games decisions and home of the future Final Four site, future home of Michigan State UConn basketball come April at the world's got to be the worst venue in terms of quality for a Final Four.
Hey, respect the Alamo Dome.
Sir, have you
I've never been there. It
Not
looks
even
like
have
it
you
looks
been,
like
have you
it
seen
looks
it?
like a morgue on
It
TV.
looks old because it is old. And
Yeah.
I can't comprehend how we are sending teams to like US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, and then the next year we're sending them to the Alamo Dome that doesn't even host an NFL team of any kind. And
Matt,
Hmm.
I hope you're there when I'm also there in April, because I'm going to push so many narratives about the CFL being played in that building at one point in history. Oh my God.
Jeez.
what?
Yes. Yeah. The San Antonio Texans played 1 year in that building. They like retracted the seats in the end zone so the field could fit. God, I can't wait. I can't wait to push that narrative. I hope you're there with me. We'll be eating a nice meal on the Riverwalk after UConn beats Michigan State in the national title game, ruining your dreams, but making my dreams just so much alive. I can't wait. Jay, I'm taking up so much of your time. Please
Hey,
go ahead.
I only have 4 picks, so we can get back at this. So we're gonna go to the Las Vegas Bowl, USC versus Texas A&M. USC has been god awful this season. Texas A&M's a 3.5 point favorite. I mean, Texas A&M's been solid this year. I think they can finish off a solid season as a 3.5 point favorite against USC. In Vegas, I will take A&M minus the 3.5. We're gonna go to the Citrus Bowl where we got Illinois versus South Carolina. South Carolina, they got a majority of their players playing in this game. Lenore Sellers is one of the more electrifying quarterbacks in college football. He's going to be playing in this game. I think they can handle Illinois, who's, let's be honest, Illinois is not that good. I think they can handle them pretty easily. Spread is 9.5. I will take South Carolina minus the 9.5. South Carolina is a very, very good team that got screwed out of. I mean, I don't know if they got screwed out of the college football playoff, but they were in discussions for getting that bid. I will take them minus the 9.5. And then we're going to go to the 2 playoff games. I like Notre Dame to beat Georgia, and that is going to be my lock. And then last but not least, Texas, Arizona State. I like Texas to cover that 13.5 point spread. So a nice little 4-pack of picks, pretty short and sweet. Hopefully to get above 500. We're very, very close.
And then, Matt, you will close it off. But before we close it off, we're going to go back to the San Antonio talk for a second. I can't wait because we're going to do a Merrifield Sportsbook Show like live from the Alamo. We're just going to try to rent it out. It's going to be all 4 of us in there. Just I can't wait for it. Or outside of the Alamo when we can't rent it because it probably isn't rentable. But Matt, I can't wait. I can't wait for all of us to be in San Antonio. It's going to be so much fun.
We should have an impromptu Merrifield Sportsbook Show live from Van Andel Arena on Monday afternoon for the championship game of the GLI.
We'll get to that, Matt. We'll get to it, but let's get your picks through first.
Pick number 1, I'm taking Michigan State minus 6.5 versus Northern Michigan on Sunday. Just kidding, it's not a line, but it's probably what it would be. Northern Michigan, terrible hockey team. I can talk more about them at the end or after we've concluded because nobody probably cares. But my first pick tomorrow or Friday afternoon, Oklahoma versus Navy. Navy's not a good football team. Oklahoma, I know Jackson Arnold's gone. I still think Brent Venables is a good coach, gets his teams to play hard. I expect them to come out and play well in this game. My system for betting bowl games, I know, Jay Walsh, you like tracking who's playing, who's not. My biggest thing on top of that, obviously, I make sure important players are playing, but more so, who's the better coach team? If you have this afternoon, I took Toledo because Pat Narduzzi is a bad football coach. That was the easiest pick of the day. The Rutgers game, I didn't know who to pick in that game because I think Shiano and Chris Kleiman are both very good coaches. Obviously, it doesn't apply for 2 games I don't know anything about, like Arkansas State, Bowling Green. But typically, that system works pretty well for me. And it's worked out well so far in this bowl season. So I'm going to stick with it here. Oklahoma minus 2.5. Navy just doesn't have the weapons and the athletes to run with Oklahoma for 4 quarters.
Wait,
next up,
Matt, you just said you don't know the coach for Arkansas State, Butch Jones.
Okay. Well, hindsight, I would have taken Bowling Green, which I was leaning Bowling Green. But as I look, Bowling Green's down 10, and they were favored by 10. So next question. Moving on. Georgia Tech tomorrow as well against Vanderbilt. I like Vanderbilt. I know Pavia is playing because he's coming back for yet another year because he sued the NCAA and won. Congratulations. Georgia Tech is the better team. They are better coached. They are a better football team, head and shoulders. I know Vandy beat Bama. Doesn't matter. Tech almost beat Georgia. So I think they're a well-coached team. They had a strong year, and I like Georgia Tech to win by a field goal plus in this one. Saturday, I'm going to go with it again. I think Bill O'Brien's a solid coach, but I love Matt Rule and the year Nebraska had. They could have won more games, but they still had a very strong year in year number one. Or Dylan Raiola, -3.5 in the Fenway Bowl. I like Nebraska here. Cover the 3.5. I think they'll come out. I know Boston College won it last year against SMU, and I took SMU, but I think Nebraska gets it done. And no Castellanos. I know BC actually finished the year strong, but I'm not a BC fan here. I like Nebraska. I'm riding with Jay Walsh, even though it's his lock of the week. Give me Mizzou. Similar situation to last year, Iowa versus Tennessee. Tennessee didn't have their quarterback because Joe Milton opted out, and Nico looked like a stud in that game and was part of the reason why I believed in Tennessee this year. Then into the playoff picks, I'm taking the over in Penn State, Boise State over 52.5. I'm taking Notre Dame plus 1.5 against Georgia, and I'm taking Oregon plus 2.5 against Ohio State. My lock, I believe I said was Georgia Tech. Is what my text said. I said my lock is Nebraska. I am changing that. My lock is officially Georgia Tech versus Vanderbilt. So I will change that text in our group chat as well. So Nick has the graphics right if those get posted at all. If they don't, that's fine by me too. But anyways, those are my picks. 7 picks for the week. And hopefully I do okay and finish the year above 500.
Yeah, I mean, we will try to make sure that the graphics are posted this week. Past 2 weeks hasn't been great on posting those because they just never got out. That is on me. Blame me. But as Matt has been kind of mentioning in here, we got a few bigger games before all these playoff games. It is the greatest hockey tournament in all of hockey. It is the Great Lakes Invitational this Sunday and Monday. It is Western Michigan, Michigan Tech, the early game on Sunday afternoon. And then it is Michigan State against Northern Michigan later that day. And then, of course, the losers will play in the third place game on Monday, and the winners playing in the championship game on Monday night. Matt, obviously, you are the voice of Michigan State hockey, at least the student voice. But let's get a quick preview. As I'll do a quick wardrobe change here to honor the hosts of the Great Lakes Invitational every year. Shout out Michigan Tech. Shout out Houghton. Shout out the pickled deviled eggs that are something.
I'll just throw out some stats for this GLI Invitational that I'm currently trying to prep for. And Michigan State, you guys know the meme where it's like the 3-headed, 4-headed dragon, and the one's making the silly face. The silly face is Northern Michigan. They are the worst team in college hockey. It's not close. You have Michigan State, number 1 in the country. Obviously missing Augustine and Sturbach, but they're still very strong. They're not missing as many players as last year. I think they'll be fine without it. You have Western Michigan, who's 6th in the nation, having still a strong year, even after last year losing a state in the tournament. One of their goalies is Hampton Slukinski, I believe is how you say it. He's the backup to Augustine for USA, but Cameron Rowe is back for another year with Western Michigan. He played every minute of every game last year for Western, so goaltending wise, they're fine. That's the only more than likely will be the championship game. Michigan State Western will be way better than the Michigan State Western basketball game on Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Why that game's at 3 p.m. has to simply because the Lions are on Monday Night Football. Because why on earth are you having a midweek game at 3 p.m.? Anyways, I move on. Northern Michigan's terrible. Absolutely. They are 3 for 43 on the power play this year. They have scored more. They've never scored more than 3 goals in the game. They've scored 3 goals 4 times. They've won 1 game. They tied once. They won said game in a shootout, but it counts. They're 1-16-1. They are god awful. Their best player has 7 points this year. They have like 15 freshmen. If you guys remember Jesse Tucker from Michigan State hockey, the team's leading scorer in Danton Cole's final year, he's on this team. He's fine. This team is quite garbage. I can't express that enough. But anyways, Tech is solid. Tech's a solid team. So this tournament, 3 really good teams, fun teams that should be entertaining to watch. And then Northern Michigan just kind of there. Make the GLI great again. I know Nick will be there on Monday for the semifinal or the 3rd place and final game. I'm sure he'll get in a true treat. I know he's rooting for Michigan Tech for some reason, but
no. I will be wearing my 1999 Michigan State GLI jersey. I do it every year, even though I have been going to the GLI for 11 years straight now, obviously not including 2020 when they didn't have one. I have not seen Michigan State win this tournament once. Matt, you probably have it in front of you. I believe the last time they won it was 2009, if I'm correct.
I believe I haven't gone that far into my prep. I believe you are correct. Let me pull up the Wikipedia page really quick. Yes, 2009. I might have been there for that because my first GLI was 07 when they played Providence in the third place game and lost. So
yeah, so
I was enamored with the Providence logo because their hockey logo specifically is sweet. It's a friar on skates. But anyways,
yes, 15 years, 15 long years. I'm hoping this is the year. Knowing me, though, given that I'll be there, they will lose to Michigan Tech. The Tech goalie that they just got from Sioux Falls in the USHL will make like 70 saves in the game because that's just what Tech usually does in this tournament because they just find some ungodly power to somehow win this. Jay Walsh and Jay, I don't know if you have anything to say about this, but I mean,
is there a line for the Frozen Four yet, or the
friendly confines or the
friendly confines? Yeah, what's the line for MSU Wisconsin?
I mean, states.
They should be like.
It would probably be 1.5, I guess, or the puck line at 1.5 would be -120 or something. Nick -110. Like state, I think that's fair. I mean, Wisconsin's playing well. It'll be an entertaining game. It'll be the best of the 3 men's games. Saturday, by far, with the women's game before, is clearly the better day. Will Michigan State wear special uniforms? I don't have the answer, unfortunately. I wish I did. Jay Walsh, any questions?
Not particularly. I don't pay a ton of attention to college hockey. I was able to cover a couple games for Michigan State hockey when I had to fill in for our hockey guy at the Only Colors my senior year. I had to fill in for the Long Island series that we played. But
was that with Danton Cole or Adam Nightingale?
Nightingale.
You lucky man. Congratulations. Danton Cole hockey deserves to be hidden from public view. Continue.
Yeah, no, trust me. I work with a guy who is like the biggest diehard college hockey fan of all time, and he has given me his opinion of Danton Cole several times. And let me say, it's not a glowing recommendation. But yeah, as somebody who is not by no means a college hockey fanatic, it's very nice to see MSU back to national prominence. Obviously, last Big Ten team to win a national title, but it was in 07. So definitely been a while. So nice to see them back to the point where they are competing for that once again.
Yeah, I have to thank Danton Cole for giving me my break in college radio, because that was my opportunity to go on the Green and White Report, shout out as a freshman, and tell people that this man needed to be removed from his position. And luckily my words hit the right. Alan Haller must have heard me, because after my freshman year, he was gone, and I have no idea what he's up to today.
Okay, Matt, to close out this show, what are the futures odds on the GLI?
What are futures odds?
Yeah, for who's going to win it. So obviously Tech's going to be at the bottom at like plus 3,000.
Northern is plus, plus a million. There is not a high enough number. They are not. They're not winning a game. They're not winning.
If anyone gives you 10,000 to 1 odds on anything, you take it.
Don't take this one. I just hand me $5 instead. I would say State. There's like plus. Like maybe even money. Like they'd have to pretty much, it's just whatever the money line is for the final game, because they are winning that first game. Western's right behind them at plus. It's probably State minus 110. We'll say even money. Western at plus 120. Maybe we'll go like plus 200, because that game against Tech isn't easy. And then Tech somewhere in the plus. I'm not good at setting futures odds. That's my next development of setting odds. And then Northern plus, who gives a fuck. Thanks for showing up.
All right. I think that was a great Lakes Invitational preview. That was a great college football quarterfinal preview. What a great episode, guys. Great to have all four people, well, all three of you, including myself, back. We'll be back not next week because that's when the playoffs actually are, but the week after to preview the semifinals at least. By that point, no. NFL will start trickling in here at some point, just given that college football is drying up and the NFL's head straight into the playoffs. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. I don't have anything to plug today because I'm just not filming at Top of the Perch after Tottenham's 1-0 loss to Nottingham Forest today. I am just so beat down by this team. I'm kind of checked out. Also didn't watch a second of it because I was at work. But nevertheless, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching. If you just found the Merrifield Sportsbook Show, either for our college hockey talk or college basketball talk or college football talk, I mean, that is what this show mostly is. But it's all in here. Make sure you click like. Make sure you click subscribe. Tell anybody you know about it. We'll be back here again. I mean, it's technically next week, but the calendar is fake at this point of the year. We'll be back at some point to preview the college football playoff semifinals here on another episode of the Merrifield Sportsbook Show.